Upon the revelation that Henry Cavil will be playing Geralt of Rivia from the Witcher series, a lot of reactions have been expressed by fans of the games as well as the novel series alike. However, there's been one question a lot of people have been asking. Isn't Cavill a bit too young to be playing the grizzled Geralt of Rivia? Now, this is largely due to Geralt's portrayal in the Witcher 3 game, especially due to his having a beard that seems to age him significantly. Now, I've played the games, I've read the novels, though, as in I haven't really finished the third game yet, much to my own shame. But I know that while gamers will see the age thing as a possible barrier for the live action series, fans of the novel know that this isn't necessarily the case. Hello everyone, this is Tom the Shadow Face from N2S, and today I'll be asking a simple question. Is Henry Cavill really too young to play Geralt of Rivia? First off, there seems to be a discrepancy concerning the timeline both from the novels as against that of the games. I've heard and seen places where the dates were given wrongly, and some of the games' dates don't match up with what's in the novels. Many claim that this is because the author of the series, Andrzej Sapkowski, never really spelled out the ages and timelines well enough, and that the game simply made things up as they could afterwards. Now, I believe both of these contribute to the problem, as the original series is written in Polish, and what we got for years after its initial publication were fan translations till the game series made it popular enough to get an official English translation. Now, I'll be using certain factors that do line up in both of the franchises to get an idea of just how far back the Witcher world the Netflix story takes place, and to use this to draw a picture of how young Geralt would appear and if Henry Cavill's age is appropriate to play him in the Netflix series, which, as we all know, are based on the novels and not the games. One of the main characters we see grow in terms of age in a specified period in the novel is the character Ciri. Andrzej Sapkowski lays certain guides during her appearances as well as situations around this character that allow readers to determine her age at certain points in the story, which makes her a perfect measuring stick. The first novel portrays the events leading to Ciri's birth, and seeing as the story happens in the first novel, we can use that to roughly calculate the time span between the first Witcher novel and the first Witcher game. The story, The Last Wish, is the first story in the Witcher timeline, although it's not the first published work of Andrzej Sapkowski in the Witcher world. The book itself is a collection of short stories, and one of these is titled A Question of Price. This features Ciri's parents, the revelation that her mother, Princess Perveta of Sintra, is pregnant with her, and the joining of her destiny with that of Geralt of Rivia. Now, the problem with this in terms of calculating time is that the entire collection of short stories are told in retrospect while Geralt is recovering from his wounds following his battle with the Temerian Striga, as later shown in the intro of the first Witcher game. We know that as at the time Geralt told this story, Ciri had already been born, but we are not told exactly how old she is at that time. Here is what we do know. Ciri was born sometime after the first book, but Geralt doesn't meet her until she's around 10 years of age, following an adventure to the forest of the Brokilon Dryads. Thanks to a scene in the Witcher 3 game, we see Ciri as a child training in Kaer Morhen, though this is one of the discrepancies we talked about earlier, as while the game scene shows her to be a child of about 8 to 10 years of age, the book shows her to be somewhere between 10 to 12 years of age at the time her training began, which took place at roughly about a year or two after the Brokilon Forest incident. At the end of the novel series, we see Ciri in her early to mid-teens, probably between the ages of 13 and 16. Now, with all of this, let's look at what we know so far. The story, The Question of Price, takes place about 1 year before the main story of The Last Wish. The time Geralt meets Ciri, she's around 10, and possibly when she's 11 or 12, she has already started her training at Kaer Morhen. At the very last scene of the very last book of the novel series, she is seen to be between 13 and 16. Also, the first Witcher game starts 5 years after the last novel. All this means is that the first novel takes place roughly 20 to 25 years before the very first game of the Witcher game series, which means Geralt will be 20 to 25 years younger than how he appears in the game, which roughly puts Cavill in a good age range to portray him. My second theory deals with the Witcher aging process, but this theory debunks the first one because, as we know, Witcher mutations slow down the aging process, making Witchers look much younger than they actually are. A very good example of this would be the Witcher Vesemir, who is the oldest Witcher in the School of the Wolf and mentor to the three other Witchers, including Geralt. Now, Vesemir looks like a man in his late 50s to early or mid 60s, though he's as fast and agile as a man of his prime, yet he is close to 200 years old, if not over. Yes, I know a lot of people will claim he's more of 100 to 120, but I believe he's crossing 2 centuries in age or really, really close to it, especially according to the novels. What this does show is how the mutations of the Witcher slows down the aging process, as Geralt himself is around 100, yet he looks like he's in his late 30s or 40 or early 40s. That is without his beard. So technically 20 to 25 years age difference with mutations would mean him looking slightly younger. But then again, this allows the easy introduction of someone of Cavill's age range without much issue. Now, all Witcher 3 fans will agree that the beard gives Geralt a cool look in a grizzled old warrior manner, to the extent that he looks like he could be Vesemir's younger brother. Now, while this is true, don't forget that he looks old because of the beard and his hair color. Shave him or throw him in black or other colored hair, and he would look to be the same age range as Dandelion. Now, his hair isn't really grey but actually white, a side effect of his Witcher mutations after he went through the last stage of the transformations as a child in the famed Trial of the Grasses. Now, this was an extreme in Geralt's case, as the process killed his skin pigmentation, making him extra white, and bleached his hair. Another Witcher, Eskel, who went through the Trial of the Grasses alongside Geralt, commented in the first Witcher game of how seeing Geralt's hair turn white suddenly made him think he was actually going mad with the excruciating pain of the procedure. Now, while his hair doesn't necessarily mean he's aged like Vesemir, many mistake it to be so. But this doesn't really explain the design choice of Geralt in the part 3 of the game series, who does in fact look old. An example of this is the previous 2 Witcher games, especially Witcher 1, where Geralt looks to be a lot younger than he is in Witcher 3, even though the time between the 3 games minus the Blood and Wine DLC of the 3rd game is about 3 years total. The major leap in time in the entire Witcher game franchise is between Witcher 3 main story and the Blood and Wine DLC, which takes place about 2 years later, yet Geralt hasn't aged a single day. The novel, however, never refers to Geralt as aged or old, simply older. This is mostly by the character Neneke, who constantly reminds him that he's no longer a child or a young Witcher. This means he appears to be in his late 30s or at most early 40s. Truth be told, in all this, my own personal fear in the choice of Cavill as Geralt was always of the character's physical build. The novel series always described Geralt as being of lean, muscular build. There was even a reference to Geralt being a skeletal old man sometime in the story, though I can't remember if this was made in the novel or in the game Witcher 2, which for me has the best and closest portrayal of Geralt's physique in my opinion. But as we all know, Cavill is a big muscular guy. I mean, he plays Superman for God's sakes. And in the recently released Mission Impossible 6 Fallout, his character is that of a big muscled brute of a man. My fear was in this shift of physique. But then again, if Marvel's Wolverine can go from being one of the shortest heroes in the comics to being taller than most heroes in the movies, this shouldn't be much of a problem. Now, all this mostly means that Henry Cavil can play Geralt exactly as he is, without needing aging makeup, big bushy beards, or CGI mustache removals. Outside the basic whitening of his skin and bleaching of his hair to fit with the character. Personally, I'm looking forward to what Netflix will do and the other actors that will be selected for other character roles. And yes, I know the rumors of the character series casting call recently brought a bit of controversy, but I think we should wait and see what Netflix intends to do. After all, we know Netflix doesn't pull punches when it comes to their series, and no matter what route they go with, the Witcher series is bound to be awesome. Until next time, this is Tom the Shadow Face, and I'll see you guys on the next video.